Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the next Dockyard ship. For update 13.7, you're going to get the Almirante Oquendo in the Dockyard. I'm probably mispronouncing that, I do apologize, but this is a Tier 9 Spanish cruiser, where you get 12 203mm guns with a base reload of 13 seconds. What's powerful about this ship is you have a 17% fire chance on that. So this thing is insane at starting fires. It is going to farm battleships incredibly well. It also has a funny button. This F key here is going to give you 20% better dispersion in exchange for 42% longer reload time, which would be incredibly powerful on a battleship or a battle cruiser or something with very strong armor piercing. Here though, we get very standard 203mm AP at Tier 9, which is to say it's not the best. You really have to face light cruisers to really want to use the AP. Otherwise, I think this ship is mostly going to just be an HE spammer. And because of that, this F key isn't the most useful. Maybe if you're catching a destroyer broadside at their most vulnerable and you can guarantee that salvo in, maybe it's worth the trade-off in DPM. But otherwise, if you're farming battleships, heavy cruisers, DPMing at destroyers, you're probably just going to use the standard salvo and not go for this F key. But we'll see. I'll have to play it some more, but this first impressions here, it's very good at that HE spamming role. But let's talk about that Dockyard. This ship will be available in the Dockyard with 20 phases, and each phase will cost you 2,000 doubloons. You get a few starter packs, which are the way to get you in early, and then there's a time pressure on you to use them, but 7 phases for 8,000 doubloons. That's not required, though, to actually finish this Dockyard. 2 levels are going to be the requirement out of a pack, and that is 3,000 doubloons. So that's your minimum value to get into this ship. You do at least get a Tier 6 German light cruiser Leipzig. Again, probably mispronouncing that, I apologize. But that is also available in this Dockyard partway through. And if you already have that ship, you will get the 2 phases for free or in exchange for already having that ship. And that way you don't need to buy into this Dockyard. If not, the cheapest way in, of course, is that 3K early access or early starter pack. But since the phases are only 2,000 doubloons each, and you only need to get 2 of them to finish off the Dockyard or get the whole ship, I might recommend, if you're concerned about the time commitment over the next 2 months, maybe wait until the end. Sure, it's 1,000 doubloons different if you get the starter pack for the 2 phases, or if you just buy those 2 phases at the end once you know that you actually were able to put in the time. But that way you're not buying something and then having that time pressure always hanging over you for the next 2 months. That would maybe be my recommendation if you're interested in this. It's a bit of a FOMO tactic that they like to use to get people to buy in. And then if you're not able to finish up the Dockyard missions before the time runs out, you're more likely going to spend even more money to get the ship because you've already bought in, right? Sunk cost. Personally, I wish they would change up Dockyards entirely. I've got some ideas, but maybe if they offered like rotating Dockyards throughout the year, old ones come back, and if you didn't get all the way through them, maybe there'd be an option to start again or start at the phase you were stopped at. I don't know. These Dockyards are cool, they're interesting, they're much better than the normal Battle Pass. It is still a Battle Pass type system, and it's kind of disappointing that there's no way to get some of the older ships that were available for people. And I mean, I just think if you've already spent money and put money into it, you probably should get something out of it at the end, the ship that you want. So if they could come back and offer that, that'd be great. But that's it for the Dockyard stuff. Let's talk a little bit more about this ship. The guns are very floaty, as you can tell. It's very difficult to lead targets at longer ranges, even though there is a spotter plane here, and we get some very nice base range at 17.6 kilometers. For Tier 9, that's pretty good. It's just very difficult to lead these shells at range, so even though you're probably going to be trying to farm battleships, at higher tier, people like to stay pretty far back, so you might find that a little bit tricky to use. The other thing to consider is the turret angles and armor. That's going to be the lifeblood of a ship like this. when you're going to be pushing in, so what your rear turrets have looking forward is 37 degrees. So pushing in, you do have to show quite a bit of broadside to fire all your guns. When you're kiting though, like we are doing right now, it's only 33 degrees. So much better angle to take and still be able to fire all of your guns, which is nice. Armor-wise, you only get 27mm deck and upper belt armor. So we'll look at that in a little bit, but you're going to get overmatched by a lot of battleships at this high tier, and that can be difficult to deal with. This ship is also quite big, and the maneuverability is not amazing, so you're likely going to take some very big hits trying to play this kiting open water playstyle with the HE, especially into higher tiers. When you get to fight your own tier and down to tier 7s like this kind of perfect matchmaker, you will find that it lasts for quite a while. And the Citadel belt armor is spaced, and it's actually got 3 different plates. So the outer plate is actually 40mm, and it goes up a fair ways on the belt. So that upper belt of 27mm isn't as much of a downside, since it only covers a thin strip towards the top of the belt, whereas everything else is 40, which is going to auto-bounce battleship shells, which is nice to have. Our turret traverse is pretty slow as well, since of course we're taking reload mod. It's pretty slow. I could buff that a little bit more with the commander, and I certainly do need to change up the commander build I was running here, since I'm losing my engine a lot. These HE bombs and HE shells from the Lion, yeah, they're taking out my engine quite a bit. So you definitely want to be running something like Last Stand or whatever it's called for cruisers that allow your engine to operate at a lower capacity, but still operate if it's been knocked out, because it's pretty often, I gotta say. As for the consumables on this ship, it's pretty standard. Cruiser damage control, normal cruiser repair, nothing too special there. We do get the option between running a hydro or a defensive fire, but since our AA is really, really bad, and defensive fire no longer has that maximum dispersion spread that it used to have back in the RTS days, it's really not worth running. We'll take a look at the carrier rework some more. I think they did some changes. They updated the test server, so I might have to take a look at that later this week. But for now, just run a hydro, guys. A is pretty useless in the current iteration. You also get the option of spotter aircraft or a fighter plane. Of course, we're going spotter, so 20% better range, allowing us to function a little bit easier in those tier 10 and maybe even super ship games if you're incredibly unlucky, which can happen more often than not these days. But this ship is going to struggle there for sure. And even though we can get decent range with this spotter, those floaty shells can be a bit of an issue. Double fire though instantly on this Kronstadt, going to give us a lot of damage, and that's the key here. Anytime you can farm one ship, even another fire, look at that. Very fortunate for us. Anytime you can farm one ship in particular, though, you get a double fire, they use their damage control, you're going to get at least 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, all 4 fires on a guy before they can get to their damage control again. It is very, very, very good at starting fires. The ship also has torpedoes. Not really much to talk about here. You only get 3 per side, and they only go 8 kilometers. 62 knots, not the fastest, and they do at least do 16,633 damage, so reasonable alpha damage, but you're not really focused on them at all. This ship is all about its main guns. And you can tell how little I'm using this F key here, but oh my goodness, 8k damage there. To be fair, this is an arms race match, and there's a very good reason I'm showing you this arms race match, because it's gonna go pretty well, even though it's looking quite bad at the moment. Notice how the AA works, or doesn't work here. Not really going to do much to this carrier. He's just going to get to farm us pretty much for free. And our engine keeps getting knocked out over and over and over again. Certainly, I need to change up this build. You do at least get plane-based ASWs there too, so if subs are around, you can deal with them a little easier than the ship-based ones, of course. But they only have a range of 7 kilometers, so not always going to be that valuable for you. Onto this game, though, we do lose our last destroyer there, and we're left in a 2v6. Myself and our carrier are the last ones alive on our team. Fortunately, our team does have control of the middle cap circle, which is going to allow us to hopefully get some resets here. Anytime you have an arms race game like this one, you do need to be very, very careful about that middle cap circle. The points tick very quickly, so we're going to need to get some resets soon. But as we finish off that lion, I mean the fires, guys, 19 fires. They just stack so quickly. The guns are very, very powerful at lighting fires, so you do want to focus battleships. That kind of is a theme these days, but very good at farming down battleships, or battle cruisers too, this Kronstadt. But very floaty shells here too, so getting some hits though, which is nice, but you do need to be very good at leading your target, and not just horizontally, but vertically as well. Anytime you have very, very floaty shells, the game is super sensitive to the vertical lead you give. The shells are going to go long, they're going to go short very, very often. Any slight maneuvering of the enemy ship is going to throw off your aim massively in the vertical direction, even if horizontally you're aiming correctly. So that's a pretty big downside. Look at that, 15 seconds out to 20 kilometers. So I would not recommend you run range mod at all on this thing. Not worth it, just because the shells are too floaty as it is at those longer ranges. I'd much rather be running more concealment focused builds with some reload mod, and then we get a little bit more power out of this ship. But we do need to use our concealment to get into good positions, at least initially. And any sort of sustained fire is going to be pretty bad for this ship, especially from those higher tier battleships with overmatch. So I'm obviously going to try and go dark, try and use island cover, that sort of thing. Here we're preventing the Colorado from getting any shots into us, since the island is between us and him. And I'm really trying to finish off that Kronstadt. Again, that vertical just slightly not leading it high enough, and we do end up missing. Get a last second fire though, so if he doesn't have a damage control, he could go down. Now we're up to nearly 250,000 damage in this one. Pretty insane. 2 million potential damage too. Not really a great showcase of how bad this armor is, to be fair. We've had, what, a Kronstadt, which doesn't overmatch us, shooting at our angled ship with AP. We have a Lion that does overmatch us, only shooting HE at us. It's not, not the best test of armor. Although we have had to deal with this carrier, and again, that engine gets knocked out. We do take out the cruiser there, and actually the Kagero went after our Lexington there. So we might actually be losing our carrier. No option for a solo warrior here though, unfortunately, but very, very close to it. And I'm not sure where this Colorado's looking. Maybe he had his spotter plane up and is trying to go for the Lexington. I don't know, but we will take it. Colorado does overmatch us though. That 27mm deck and upper belt armor is vulnerable. He misses, fortunately for us. But that 40mm lower belt is actually quite useful. I think that's what helped a lot at these closer ranges, just to deal with some of that incoming AP, if they aim correctly, of course. And arms race buffs here, though, stacking 2 reload buffs. Typically, the reload is not going to be anywhere near this good. And can I get a last second fire? That damage control still functioning on that American battleship, but it goes out and we get another fire. 282,000 damage. The Kagero did manage to get our Lexington there, of course. So very tricky game here. We need to get some resets. We actually just need to get the Colorado killed. And the only way I'm going to win this is if we can get the cap points ticking soon. I'm going to be out of HP very quickly here since we're out of heals. And again, that engine preventing me from getting into the fight a little bit quicker. You really, really do need to take... I think it's last stand on destroyers, but I don't remember exactly what it's called. But on the cruisers, it probably is the same thing. But you need that. You desperately need that. Really should be angling for the planes a little better, but I was worried the Colorado was ready for us. Maybe he wasn't though, so we get quite lucky. That fire is still ticking, and we should finish him off here. So with the Kagero taken out by our Lexington, very important, we get a small boost to our points that way, and we will win this game in a minute 30 if things stay the same. So I have to just live for a minute 30. What I'm worried about here is, will the enemy carrier get into the cap circle in time? Typically, I'd say just run away and let the points tick. But if I do that and the carrier gets into the cap circle to stall it out, there's no way I win then at that point. He just has enough time on the clock to kill me. At least that's kind of the thought here. Minute 20 on the clock, maybe that's not quite true. I suppose I could have run off the map, but that was what was going through my head. I wasn't sure, and I thought I would need that extra 10, 20 seconds, let's say, around 15 to 20 seconds that the points will give us versus the 20-minute timer on this game. So trying to angle the dive bombers here, we do want to go broadside-ish. I'm trying to turn in and slow down, though, to hopefully throw off his aim. Don't quite manage it. Damage control is down at the moment, so this fire is going to tick. Fortunately for cruisers, fires don't last that long on the base, so this isn't going to do too much damage to us. If we were in a battle cruiser battleship, they'd be, what, 45, a minute long? That's quite a bit worse. 20 seconds. Can he get a drop in time? 20 seconds to live here to win this game. I was pretty nervous, but he takes a bit of a longer route. I think trying to line up a better drop. And 5 seconds, 3 seconds, one more tick. Actually, 2 more ticks. There it is. Victory just before he gets his drop. We live anyway. We live anyway. So 292,000 damage with this new heavy cruiser. Pretty good, man. Pretty good, I gotta say. It will struggle into up tiers, but that 24 fires, man, the fire chance is going to help you a lot in those up tiers. The real problem there is going to be your survivability as you get into higher tier matchmaker. So you got to play a little more passive, a little more cautious, maybe less open water than I did in this one. And just barely over 100k fire damage in that one. Kind of insane. I will admit I didn't think this cruiser would be that good or capable of a game like that when initially looking at it. It's a tier 9 Spanish cruiser that seems to get not the most powerful guns, but having 12 of these with relatively strong HE is pretty nice. I was expecting maybe more AP on this ship, and maybe a little better AP, considering the funny button here, this F key giving us shell dispersion, which really matters more with AP than high explosive. High explosive, you want the DPM, which we kind of sacrifice here. Where with AP, you kind of value that one single salvo and having it as accurate as possible. Given that this line also has some pretty strong AP at higher tier, certainly the tier 10, those 254 mil guns are quite powerful with the burst fire on that one. I was thinking maybe this would be a version of that with accuracy instead of a burst, but not really the case. But the HE is very, very powerful. With this build getting to 19% fire chance, kind of insane there. And I do need to switch it up, though. I need to get Last Stand. It is still called Last Stand. Good. Maybe even getting Grease the Gears, too. Slow turrets, but you just have to have Last Stand. I might not take Eye in the Sky, since I found the range to be almost unusable. Very hard to use, at least. Very hard to use the added range of a spotter plane. Maybe try and go for a little more damage at closer ranges. I'm not sure, but we can see how the extra HP from Superintendent Survivability Expert and multiplied by Arms Race, to be fair, allowed me to live and win that game. Very nice. Rudder shift is quite long, so maybe running a lighthouse build or running double rudder or maybe rudder instead of conceal on the upgrades could give you some better maneuverability. The turning radius isn't bad. I just think you need the concealment with this ship. The farther you are away, the harder these guns are going to be to lead, is the idea here. But I might have to try that. Maybe a lighthouse build could be fun. These are the upgrades here, and I don't really think you should go defire. Not currently. And then maybe fighter to lock on to some of those drops so you don't have multiple drops, since the AA is nowhere near powerful enough to deal with multiple drops. But I think the spotter could be situationally useful at higher tier as well, since there are times where there's like a bow-in battleship at 20 kilometers that maybe you can farm with this ship. But it's pretty solid overall. Again, that Dockyard is going to be 2 months available for the missions, and then a third month is available if you want to spend the money to finish it off. You need 2 packs to get this ship, and those are 2,000 doubloons each. and there's going to be a starter early access pack for 3,000 doubloons to get you those first 2 phases. If you already have the Leipzig, again, sorry about the pronunciation there, you will get the Oquendo for free. It's a time investment, but you don't need to spend the doubloons on any of those packs. This ship will be available partway through the Dockyard, as in the rewards chain, so that's nice. You don't have to spend anything on this Dockyard to get this ship. If you're wondering, I might take a look at it soon, but it's kind of a Nuremberg with less DPM on the main guns, but you get 10-kilometer torps. You also get much, much better concealment. Kind of interesting, I suppose, but you're really in this Dockyard for this ship, I think. And before I go, let's take a quick look at the armor here. 40 millimeters, right? And it goes up reasonably high, but 27 everywhere else, and then only 25 on your bow. Now, with this icebreaker of 50, you might be thinking, wow, it's got a waterline citadel. That's pretty cool. No, if you're caught broadside, you're gonna die. Which I like, to be fair. This is something I've been sort of campaigning for, is ships that take less damage angled, ships that take more damage when they're broadside, although the 27 mil deck and upper belt armor may take just a lot of damage angled as well. So, very big citadel. Yeah, it's going to be a little rough when you're caught broadside with this ship. It is spaced armor, though, so you do have this center plate of 110. So, 150 there, plus the 30. So, you know, 180 millimeters of total armor, plus 2 gaps in them. Should give you some black hole armor, but not when you're caught flat broadside. And that's why those turret angles are quite important on this ship. So considering that's 37 degrees you got to give to fire your rear guns when you're pushing towards people, it's more of a kiting ship. So definitely be careful with this thing. If you're caught bow in and you got to turn away, probably you're going to die. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I got to play it a little bit more, of course. I might have a few times where I myself get dev struck, and we'll have to include those in a fun video or later on. But that is going to do it today for the Almirante Oquendo. Apologies for the mispronunciation, and it's a decent ship though. The fire starting is incredible. Let me know what you think about this upcoming Dockyard and Dockyard ship in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.